All right. All right. All right. I had a roast beef sandwich for lunch. Should be having some lumpia tonight for dinner. Lumpia. Real lumpia made by people who used to have a restaurant in the Philippines. Lumpia. So not like I'm going to go buy some store bought lumpia. I don't even know if you can buy store bought. You know what I'm saying? Lumpia. They are delicious. They are little rolled up pockets of sunshine in a tasty form. My wife gets them from somebody that one of the women that she works with. That woman's mom, stepmom, makes them, and then we buy like I don't know 40,000 of them. We buy like a bag of like I don't know. We buy like 100 of them, and then I eat them, and I love them. And then cleaning out the the freezers the other day, I found a bag of like I don't know 25 or something, maybe 50. So my wife's always every day take out something, take out meat, chicken, hamburger meat, whatever for dinner. So when she comes home on the nights she doesn't go to her mom's, then boom, we're here. There goes Charlie. It's not going good, Charlie. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm forcing myself through. So I said, you know what? Let's have lumpia tonight. Probably can get the rest of these this bag of lumpia done. And then I'll say go to work and order more lumpia. Because I feel like you should always have lumpia in the freezer. That's my thing. I need your opinion on a name for my YouTube channel. All right, you have some ideas? Some ideas? Not great mood today. I'm just not. I just haven't really slept all that great in the last couple of days. I got up too early. My brain keeps coming on. I'm freaking out about awful book sales this month. I'm like, it's just all just driving me nuts. I feel like I have 400 things to do. The shirt doesn't fit me, keeps bunching up. My belly keeps sticking out. This is what I'm leaning towards. Screams from the Walls because it's a hard channel and my last name is well. Yeah, definitely got to have your name in it. So definitely something Walls. I agree with that one. I'm trouble with titles and names. I'm gonna tell you who's gonna help you with this one. Frank Edler. Anytime I need a name for something, when I was doing my radio show, I'm like, Frank, we're coming up with really dumb names here. And he was like, I got it. And he was like, Friday Night Rights. And I'm like, you know what? Perfect. And that's what we went with. He's usually really good at this. So wait for him to pop in. I'll keep thinking about it. You're gonna give it a go with the building up the YouTube. It's very good. A couple others were The Black Spine, as in book spine, or A Study in Fear, a play on the Sherlock story. I would personally go with your last name so that people can find it. I probably got about another month, and then I will hit my 4,000. So I'm happy with that. I did that video today. I'll probably record a couple more. I probably got like 30 ideas written down on a post-it note or on an index card. I switched the post-it notes all over my desk to index cards for that because I got like 30. It was a good video. Thank you. I appreciate it. Sometimes I meander all over the place and I'm like, I know what I want to say, but I'm obviously not taking notes or writing anything down and all that. So it's just off the top of my giant bulbous head. I'm thinking of doing some extra videos this next month. Maybe instead of the Wednesday, Sunday only, maybe add another one in there on one day, like Friday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. And I have until next Monday for my StreamYard for the 20 hours. And I think I'm pretty close. I think I have a lot of, let me look. Yeah, I don't think I'm really even close. I'm at 11 hours and 20 minutes used. So I have over 8.5 hours to use in the next like 5 days. So, and Monday when I'm on Twitch and YouTube, it'll reset. So maybe I'll just over the next couple of days record a bunch of added videos. That might make sense. So that's where we are. That's where we are right now. I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad I've gotten a couple, 3 comments on it already. Including Charlie Walls. Nice comment. So is it 20 hours a month? What's up, Keith? Yeah, StreamYard, the free version is 20 hours a month you get. Now, if you say you have like 19 and a half hours and your day, it's every, like mine is the 23rd. It re-ups on the 23rd. So if I get like I'm on the 22nd and I have like 10 minutes left, I could go on. I could record a 10-hour video if I want. And it won't cut me off and it'll still keep it. But if I do, I have 10 minutes left in my 20 hours and I do a half an hour video, then I'm done until the 23rd for me. I've never gotten to the point where I've run out. I've gotten close. But again, I'm doing 2 20-minute videos a week and I'm doing an hour a week or 2 hours. So even call it 3 hours a week. I'm doing like 12 hours. So it's not a ton. So I can do other stuff. When I was doing YouTube and Twitch together, then it was burning those hours. So, and again, it's free. I know Peter Marsh has the paid plan streamer. It's like $45 a month. Like I can't justify that right now. And I really don't need it. I'm really not using it. It allows me to focus and go, I got to do a couple of 20-minute, even doing 3 20-minute videos. And again, I could burn through, I could do like 6 more videos today if I want and still have plenty of time. So yeah. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing. So anyway, not in a good mood, not sleeping well, totally stressed about book sales and everything else. This last book has not, I think I've sold 3 copies so far, and I've gotten maybe 2,000 page reads. I haven't even paid for the artwork for the cover yet. So it's a struggle. I saw Keith's cover that Chad did. I like it. I'm gonna get. I definitely have to get some running in. Trust, is that permafrost? Yes, permafrost. I've gotten three sales on it, and probably all from this chat. I get a couple thousand page reads, which is nothing. He says I have 2 more to post. Nice. Troy says, I'm about a quarter of the way through and it's really good so far. When I finish, I'll post reviews everywhere. Won't help sales much as I don't have any kind of following. You know, every review helps, and every post, every video helps. And then I will, if you do a video, I will share it. If you do a review of it, I will share it. So it also hopefully will help you to build up. If you do a video, if you have a YouTube channel and you put it on the YouTube channel, then I will, unless you say it's an awful book, 1 star, then I will share it and we will help one another on it. If I can just get a page, I will be happy. Once we get into some crazy, lively conversations today, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do 2 hours. I'm just not feeling it. I'm gonna drink some coffee. I have some cookies. Man, I was up way too late. Yeah, I um I was not up too late. I was up a little later than normal, but I wanted to finish the novella of the Don Winslow novella I was reading. Um, his latest release is 6 novellas, which are all amazing. So I finished the fifth one last night. So I have one more left. I'll probably read it. Probably read it when I'm after I'm done here, and maybe this afternoon I'll do a video review. Keep putting out content. Just keep putting out content. I also need to do some edits. I edited some this morning. I didn't write, but I edited. So now I'm up to chapter 26 of 50 chapters. So I'm literally halfway done with the edits on this book. So that's also a good thing. I also have to I also have to switch to laundry. I also have to do the dishes. I also have to clean up the dining room table a little bit of my stuff. I have a book that came in a couple days ago. I haven't even opened it. Done a video. I got a lot to do. Chet says, "Hey folks, love this shirt. Armin, need it. You take it here. Just take it." The funny part, and I like this shirt. It's a cool shirt. So Jawas. You see what the is? I'm not even a huge Star Wars fan, but I believe my sister-in-law bought me this shirt for Christmas 4 years ago, and it didn't fit me. And now it fits me. I have lost a little bit of weight, not enough. But I mean, Jawas. Listen, I love the first three. Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back. Those are phenomenal movies. In my top 20 movies of all time. When I was a kid, those were awesome. None of the rest of them, and I don't like what they've done. We blah blah blah. So, but she bought me some really cool Star Wars shirts, which I will still wear. But then people want to talk to me about Star Wars, and then I have to say, yeah, I'm 56. I'm not into Jar Jar Binks and all this other crap they're doing. Yeah, Jawas are freaking cool. I remember when I was a kid buying my Star Wars action figures, and my Peepaw, every Saturday, Mima and Peepaw would come down, and they would take us to what was the name of it? Oh my god, Two Guys, which then hasn't been around in a long, long time. It was like Bradley's, it was like Target, that kind of place. And we would always go, and he would always get me like 3 or 4 Star Wars action figures. And I would go and I would buy I'm gonna buy 4 Jawas. And he'd be like, "Why are you buying the same thing?" No, buy different ones. And I'm like, "I have all these, but I want a bunch of Jawas and I want a bunch of stormtroopers." Because then I can have these big battles, and you can't have a battle with one stormtrooper. You can't have all these robots and you have one Jawa, And then I had the Jawa, the play set. I mean, all of it was great. I don't think anyone is in a Jar Jar, but you know what I'm saying. Like when that stuff came out, I was like, what are we doing here? Like we're pandering to the children. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I was a kid when the first ones came out, and they pandered to me. So, Chess, I have my Phantasm sweatpants on today, which also has Jawas on them. So we are like twinsies. I'm going to show you. I have Pop Tart uh, sweatpants on because it's a little cold. It's 57 degrees. This is like the high for today. So this is an outfit. I mean, if my wife doesn't immediately jump on me when she gets home, that woman is insane. Tom wrote a chapter this week. So I'm going to write a chapter back and then wait a week for him to write him another one. Chet says Kellogg's Pop Tarts are made here in Battle Creek. The commonality is just, I mean, it's just there's just invisible lines between you and I right now. I love Pop Tarts. My wife's always like, she always buys them. So obviously my favorite is like the chocolate fudge ones, but I'll eat pretty much any of them. I like the strawberry ones. I just don't like the ones that have nothing on them. I don't like the plain ones. But I will just eat them right out of the pack. I just open the pack and I just eat them. My wife said, no, you got to put them in the toaster. I'm like, it just takes too long. I'm like, if you're in there and you're making them, I'll take one in the toaster. I'm not gonna poo-poo that. I'm not gonna throw it in the garbage. I don't think there's a Pop-Tart that the normal ones, not like when they always make these fancy, stupid ones like banana pudding Pop-Tarts, crap like that. I'm like, I'm not interested in it. Any of the normal ones, I love. When I was younger, Pop-Tarts actually had filling in them. Now they tend to skimp on them. Yeah, we still got filling in it, but it's not nearly as much as when we were kids. Chad says, I'm also writing and have gray in my beard and have glasses on and have a few Funkos behind me. I mean, the similarities just keep coming. I do have a little bit of gray, just a little touch of gray, as the Grateful Dead would say. I'm not a fan of the Grateful Dead, though. I think that's the only song I really know by them. Or that one where they're singing about cocaine or something. That might be Eric Clapton. I don't know. I always look in the drawer in my drawer in the bathroom on my side. Anytime I open it to get my scissors or razor or whatever, and I always see my big stack of contacts in there. But I'm like, yeah, I don't want to put contacts in anymore. It just seems like so much work. Touch of Grey is the only one worth listening to anyway. That's my opinion. We twinsies. Wow, we are in sync today, Chad, like the great boy band. Now, here's a question. When writing the color out in novels, which is it, gray or gray? Yes, gray is Gray is American. Like I just said, gray or gray. Yeah, Gray. That's like we say color, COLOR, not COLOUR. The only time we say COLOUR is the band Living Color. Great band. Keith says, anyone seen the new Spider-Man trailer? I swear the image on that comic cover behind an arm is now on film. That one? That one. I mean, that is the iconic, that's the first appearance of Spider-Man. Amazing Fantasy. Maybe they're trying to copy that. They're trying to go back to their roots. There's Mike Lee. I didn't know that for a while till I was corrected on it in editing. Grew up reading Brit Lit, so I had no idea. He says, "Yep, yeah, that is the iconic first Spider-Man. It's kind of like the when you see Superman holding the bus up." Mike Lee really didn't do well in English classes, I'm guessing here. He's like, "I'll take a spot of Earl Grey, Grey." Yeah, Grey Poupon. Mike says, "I did goods in English." I apologize. How insulting is it for programs on setup to ask English, UK, or simplified English? We're not insulted by much. We got our own. We got bigger problems. For those keeping track, I am now at 3,051 hours of 4,000 hours. So I appreciate everybody that's binge watching all of my videos. I figure by about this time next month, I should hit my 4,000 hours if I can keep up this pace. And the only reason I know that is because my wife crunched the numbers because she's a numbers person. She's like, "You should be done by about April 15th." I am like, perfect. Jess is still streaming the playlist, but put in 70 plus hours in the past week. That is awesome. I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot. Yeah, I just put on a playlist and I just let it roll. And then when it's done, I just let another one. Do a 24-hour marathon stream to celebrate. Charlie, you going to jump in with me on that and do, I don't know, 22 of those hours for me? Somebody said, we got to do something special when you hit the 4,000. And I was like, "All right, you got any ideas?" And he's like, "No." I'm like, "You know what? I'll throw it out for you guys to see if anybody knows anything exciting." Maybe I'll do some, I don't know, giveaways. I don't know. I don't know what to do. Mike Lee said, drunk Q&A live stream. They probably barely drink anymore. Troy says, maybe give away a couple of signed books or something. Special compilation of butt crack. You know what? I probably got quite a few of those videos, Keith. Or do a hot tub stream. I want 4,000 hours. I don't want 40,000 hours. I'd like to pace myself. Chet says, yeah, do the hot tub stream like the chicks on Twitch. Yeah, exactly. Matthew says, I moved away from actual streaming to just having countdown clocks for my works from now on. But how many people actually care to look at it? I'm not sure. Yeah, with everything else, you need to look at it and go, is this moving the needle? Is this working at all? Damn Canada geese flying around out there. I'm gonna have me some more Linden's chocolate chip cookies, like when I was a kid. Les and I searched all over both Twitch and YouTube for people live streaming actual writing. Nobody's doing what you're doing on. It's weird because when Jay Wilburn was doing it, nobody was doing it. And then a bunch of people on Twitch started doing it. And then it just back and forth, it kind of fades away. It's weird. So good. Says I can find 20 people writing names in calligraphy, but no, yeah, I see a ton of them. Keith says the muse fade. The problem is a lot of the people, like me, when I was doing it, when Jay was doing it, was everybody I'm going to make $1 million doing this, and then it fades out when you're like, yeah, I'm not getting any followers, and I'm not really tightening this up or doing what I should be doing. So then they just stop doing it. And I don't see a lot of new people coming in doing it because they're all like, let's do wacky videos. Matthew says to Chad, the writing community on Twitch are in the amateur category. I've talked to a lot of them, only like 2 or 3 actually published authors. Yeah, there's a lot of that on there. Mike Lee says, I think that's because the audience is mostly writers and we're typically looking for help or feedback of some sort. I found one other person who does something like this on Twitch, but they did live chapter reviews submitted by viewers. Yeah. I think what's helping me is the coffee videos every morning, which is a little over a minute. They're bringing in a lot of subscribers. So that's like a whole thing for subscribers. And then doing the writing videos, like I did the one today, your first 1,000,000 words, those are bringing in writers as well. And then you get people jumping in and out here, which is funny because at the end I'm like, wow, we had 30 something people in today. And, maybe 80 are commenting. So it's definitely, I think what I'm doing based on all the research I've done, I think it's working. I think the writing, actually sitting here and writing and actually doing videos about, hey, I've been in this for almost 40 years. So those videos I think are definitely bringing in a lot of new people, tons of comments and tons of people sending me messages. So I think it's working. Chad says, the authors I do find aren't writing but playing video games or their screens are cluttered with Japanimation while playing mini games that I don't even understand. Yeah, I see a lot of that. Like I did not want that really full crazy screen on Twitch with all kinds of anime jumping around, and every time somebody subscribed, things blowing up on the screen and all this. I'm like, yeah, That's just I don't know. That's a lot of filler. Chaz says it makes me want to go back and do my channel again, but setting that all up again with the graphics is such a headache. Yeah, but again, you don't really need too crazy of graphics. I think if you're just making it pretty, I don't know, pretty normal, I think you're good. Charlie says the writing videos helped me a lot. Very cool. Matthew says there's one jackhole in that whole community who critiques everyone like he's perfect because he has a degree in English. He hated my work saying I was writing wrong. Yeah, those people are morons. There's no right and wrong way, just right. Key says there are too many people who write to make a quick buck, not realizing that there are easier ways to earn a living. Exactly. We knew a girl, me and Mike Lee. I think Mike was coming to the group back then. That would go to lunch, and she was writing children's books because she wanted to make a quick buck. And so she was writing, and she had like her daughter was drawing or something, and she was, she came up with like 40 different kids books, like these 15-page things that she was charging crazy amounts for. And she stopped coming to our group, I think, when she realized, oh yeah, I'm not making any money on this. Matt says, I got to read his work and it's sterile and soulless, like he was writing for a professor. And that's the problem. If you go through and you write and half your dialogue has blue lines under it because it's not structured correctly, blah blah blah, but it's still people talking. You want it fiction, you want it to be interesting. You want to write that kind of stuff, write nonfiction. Chet says, I went to see guys with beautiful blue eyes and Jawa shirts pounding away on their keyboard with breaks of looking out the window saying, who dat? Exactly. That's why I'm so damn successful. I hope you were talking about me. Key says, my opinion is art first, money second. You put out great art, the money will come. You hope. That is the goal. Unlike Keith, I get 3 cookies for lunch. Hey, Keith, truth hurts. Mike says, I vaguely remember that there were a lot of kids lit authors in the group where Elder Mike and I met, some with that same mindset. Yeah. That woman, I still see her online, but she doesn't comment or anything. She's still putting out books. Writing is for the soul, money is for the body. I make a lot of money with this body, as you can imagine. I'm going to eat my 3rd cookie. Mike Lee said, only pens. Says, after watching and illustrating 6 children's books, researchers tell me that children's books are the hardest to market. So far, that's been my experience too. But at least you're going in with the idea of, hey, I want to do this because I'm creative and I want to, yeah, I want to make money, but I'm not doing it just for that. She's literally doing it just to make money. It doesn't seem like she is. Keith says, Chad, you have to factor in less people are having children these days as well. I think it comes down to timing. Matthew says, yeah, I work with niche concepts. Like my first book was told from the eyes of lions, and my latest book is anthro-animal characters. That's not like Red Bull, but more animalistic versus humanistic. Mike says, yeah, I heard the reasoning is that we want our kids to go up either whatever we did, so we just pass on the same stories. If I love Chronicles of Narnia, guess what my kids will be reading or having? Read to them. Says, I think a lot of it has to do with parents not reading to their kids anymore. They turn on Netflix or YouTube or hand them the iPad. Keith says, that's true, Chad. Yeah, exactly. How many times do you go out to a restaurant and there's crappy parents and the kids have their phone on or their iPad or something on full blast? They're watching YouTube videos or cartoons or something. Like, hey, here's something crazy. Talk to the kids. They have TVs in the car, so the kids will not bother the parents. He says, can you do a reading at your local library for a children's group? Now he says, my first book makes The Lion King look like it's for toddlers. Chad says, man, I love reading to my kids, using different voices and making them laugh. Exactly. I read to my kids. I also made up a ton of stories when they were grown up. Especially my son, who tomorrow turns 30, which is ridiculous. I would say there once was a little boy named, and I would think, and he would go, Jamie, name him Jamie. I'm like, all right. And then he had a sister named, what can we name this sister? And then my daughter would say, Isabella. And I was, all right. And then I would just make up some stupid story for them. And they loved it. You'd sit down and you'd read them a book. So we could do that, Keith, but I have zero faith in my town. Since legalization, it's been buried in a cloud of unstoppable ganja. You know what? Right there, Chad, there's your next book. There's your next book, The Ferret Ganja King. The ferrets are growing the weed in Detroit. You'd have kids and parents come in to read that. Go with Keith onto a Disney cruise. Apparently 80 billion kids on that. No thanks. Kaiju, giant cloud of ganja. That people would show up with their kids like, oh, I thought we were all going to smoke while you read. This is boring. I literally just want to get a page in here. You can find it in the upcoming Monster Manual. The system for determining what novels are for children is way out of sync with what tends to get written. Yeah, there's a female author that I don't like because she tried to get me in trouble years ago. I will not mention her name. Anyway, she writes young adult, but it's very, very graphic. I'm like, how is that young adult? Like, if I had a kid and they're reading this stuff and it's about and there's rape in it and there's chapters and chapters about the girl getting her first period and all kinds of crazy stuff she does with the blood. I mean, I'm just like, what? Why are you writing this? What kid is reading this? What am I writing today, Keith? Let me tell you. I'm writing chapter 40 of 50 of White Trash, the third book in the last trilogy I will ever do with Tom Duffy because he writes so damn slow. Because he writes once every a week or 10 days. So he wrote this on late Monday. And I'm so annoyed. I'm like, I gotta do other stuff. And then today I was like, you know what? Let me just write this. And I'm waiting to get lucky that he just writes 2 chapters in a week. I mean, the dude used to write every day. Yeah, so angry. Ugh, so angry. That's my anger. That's my angry thing. You know, the angry thing. I charge my watch. I've actually been walking again. Not 6,000 steps or more, but I've been doing like 4,000 steps. So I'm building it up. I'm trying to do 100 more steps a day, at least, than the day before. Building it up. And I'm on the new 7 milligram Rybelsus from the 3 milligrams. So I'm gonna start getting nauseous in a couple of days when the pills really hit my system. I think this is day 2 of it. So then I'm like, hey, I'm not eating 3 cookies today as my snack because I'm going to throw up if I do, which is fine. So I'm trying to get this chapter done, chapter 40. We got 10 chapters left. Problem is we're only maybe a week. So we got like another 5 weeks of this. This book will be finished after I hit my 4,000 hours. That's crazy. I write when the inspiration strikes, and when I do, I get a lot done from ADHD hyperfocus. I write every day except for Saturday. Saturday is the only time that my wife is around. Now my wife has stuff coming up. I think she's going to visit her sister in Dallas in a couple 3 weeks. And then I know for when is Easter? Look. Easter is April 5th. So that weekend, Tom and Jess will be out of town. So my wife will be spending, I think, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at her mom's those 3 days. So the Saturday, I will not be with her, obviously. So I won't see her much that week. But I will some more writing in on that day. Or baseball season starts in in another week. So maybe I'll just watch some baseball games all day. Lorraine, good afternoon. Looks like I missed. You missed a lot, Lorraine. You missed so much. He says, I write Monday through Friday. Weekends are for the wife. My entire weekend would be for the wife, but she's not here on Sunday. Sunday, about 10 o'clock in the morning, she leaves and goes to her mom's for the day. So Jess gets another day off. And then she doesn't get home till after 10. So Sundays are literally... I'm on my own. I'll do some writing with Peter Marsh and Chad, 9 a.m. in the morning for a couple hours, and then I'm on my own. Reading, naps, television, baseball games. I mean, because she does that, that's when I started watching football again. Because I'm like, what am I going to do on a Sunday? So I write. I'll write in the morning with those two guys, but normally I'm like, Then the 8th, I turned 42. I barely remember 42. Lorraine in the house, though, people. So we have a lady in the house. So tune it down a notch. Lorraine says, I don't remember 42 either. Yeah. 42. 42, I believe I was probably just turned 43 when I met Shelly. I think about a month, well, it was not even a month after my 43rd birthday, we started dating. Trish says, stop all the swearing. Chad says, dang, I'm old enough to be your dad. Yeah. Yeah. No more horseplay. That's right, Michael. Actually, we were not having rowdy talk because, Frank isn't in here. Where the hell is Frank? At 42, I hadn't even started writing yet. Wow. 42, I went 40. I think I was 42 when I went full time. Now they started writing in 1997. Lorraine said hi to Mike Lee. Mike is one of the ones that comes to MondoCon every year. I didn't write in earnest until 50. At 50, Lorraine changed her name to Ernest, and then she started writing. I think that's a wonderful story. She's been writing 25 years now. This will be 38 years since I had my first story published. Matthew was 4. My earnest writing started 3 years ago, a bit of time after my first publication. It's a passion, right? Definitely it's a passion. I wrote 4 decent short stories in my early 20s, and nothing until I was 44. Yeah, I went through a big period of probably close to 2000 until 2008, maybe. I didn't write anything. I was in an awful marriage. I was in an awful relationship with somebody. I didn't write at all. One of these videos coming up will be like the history of me writing and not writing. For instance, I wrote things I didn't finish off and on for years. Yeah. Says, I'm glad I'm not the only one. Keith says, history of writing could be the celebration of 4K hours. Also a good idea. Mike Lee says, about 13 years for me, but I'm going off of when I finished my first complete novel in high school. It wasn't good, but it was complete. First publication was last year. Matthew says, I was like every first time writer. My first book was written and rewritten, and so I said, you know what? Time to move on. Ches says, you could do a video about hobbyist writing versus career writing and the attitude you need to be a career writer. I'm writing that down. Thank you. And Lorraine seconded it, so I have to do that video at some point. Chet says, one more week before some Tiger baseball. Matty says, might as well have a video on the errors of first-time writers and limiting themselves to first-person protagonists. I thought everyone knew if you were doing first-person, it's a secondary character. I try to be as specific as possible for me. Lorraine says, I use third-person limit. I've done the Dirty Deed series, all 12 books are first-person. But I'm mostly head-hopping in third-person. I use the 18th person. So the person who knows the person, who knows the maid, whose cousins, best friends, wives, uncles, chiropractor, wife, child, baby mama. That's who I'm writing about. Chess is my absolute favorite to write is first person present. For instance, I tried first person, but it felt like I was in a tight box. Matthew says, I prefer writing third limited, but right now I'm rewriting a third omniscient. Lorraine says, yeah, but you're great at it, Chad. Thank you, Lorraine. Most people don't handle it well. Yeah, it's a special talent to do that. I am almost done with this first page. My goal was to get up and actually write this morning before I came on here to write, because I know we tend to chat a lot and I get distracted. I was writing something a lot of authors tend to have a hard time attempting, and that's writing screenplays. Yeah, I mean it's a different talent. You know, there's a different talent for flash fiction, for short stories, for novellas, for novels, for screenplays. There's all these different ways we write. Mike Lee says, my submission, writing with the wrong protagonist. I've written and read stories where a secondary or tertiary character was infinitely more interesting than the protagonist. Yeah. That's the fun of creating characters. You're just like, yeah, I just need a bartender here real quick. And then I'm like, you know what? The bartender's the best character I wrote in this story. I mean, this thing that we're writing now is basically from the previous trilogy. It was just basically, yeah, we just need, hey, this PI needs a secretary. Let's just throw this person in, and now she's got her own trilogy because me and Tom love writing this character so much. Just, I've only written one screenplay, and it's definitely a whole different ballgame. I have plans for more, though. Mike Lee says, different talent. I've done both and love both very different. Lorraine says, third Omni is challenging unless you're a Russian author from the 1800s. I look forward to seeing your take on that. As a Russian author from the 1800s, I agree with you. My pilot screenplay for a TV series recently made it past the first round at Cannes. Very nice. Congratulations. I said, and he'll clam up, as in he won't talk. And then they try to change it to, and he'll calm down. It's not what I was saying, people. Chess says, it's strange how some characters develop as you write them and become the star. One-legged Roddy from Neon Owl was only supposed to be in one quick scene, but I kept him in and he's everyone's favorite. Exactly. You just don't know. When I beta tested a character was only in one chapter as a catalyst for the main protagonist, people fell in love with the character and was shocked when I killed him off. Always keep them guessing. Or as the offspring say, keep them separated. Almost out of coffee, too. I appreciate everybody subscribing. I appreciate everybody watching a ton of my videos. We're getting there, people. I broke 9,200 subscribers, and I broke 3,000 hours. So we're moving in the right direction. Somebody is cutting their grass because I can smell it on the wind. I'm like a bloodhound. I also feel like I'm going to sneeze. This is, I hate when my story dictates that I kill off a character that I love, but sometimes it's called for. Sometimes you gotta keep the readers guessing, you know. Most of the time, I'm like, I should not kill off all these characters, but I can't help it. Runaway Heathen in the house again. Hello, hell. How goes the right words today? Not great. My mood is not great. I'm trying to push through, trying to talk to you people, get in a better mood. You know how many times I have to tell people my ability to type in chat is not indicative of my ability as a writer? Let's hope not. Rain understands that. The book club I joined, we just finished Slaughterhouse 5 and will now be reading Jane Eyre. Anyone read it? No. It's an online book club chat. Wait, did she close the door? Yeah, she did. She closed the door. I hate when I'm like, oh, she opened the door again, but she never closed it to begin with. Lauren says, been in my to-be-read list forever. Matthew, the next book I'm reading is Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West. I have no interest in any of that Wicked stuff. Chad says, yes, online with virtual meetings on Zoom. It's been pretty cool. Well, that's cool. Lorraine saw a movie rendition about 20 years ago. I remember me and Keith walking through a bookstore many, many years ago when the, I don't know if it was Abe Lincoln, Zombie Hunter, whatever those books were, came out. And Keith was very upset at those. He did not like that it was lazy to him. I mean, I agreed. It was lazy. They're basically just Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and Vampire Hunters and stuff. I just remember Keith very mad at that. Runaway Heathens. I just finished Between Two Fires, really dark and visceral, but very good. Yeah, Vampire Hunter. Yes, I don't know. I never read any of those books. Ryan says, I love seeing what writers read. Runaway Heathens. I remember when Pride and Prejudice and Zombies came out. Ryan says, then I buy half of them. They sit on my shelves for far too long. Yeah, I have so many. I have three stacks on my end table, and it's higher than the lamp there. And my wife's like, "You're reading these, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." The problem is I keep getting 5 books a week coming in. Nick Zinn is gonna be very happy at MondoCon. He always leaves plenty of room in his suitcase. Because then I'm like, here, take these 50 books, as many as you can pack away in your stuff. Here, I've read these 80 books in the last year. Take them. How do you manage to get all those arcs on? The simple answer from doing this so long and being in touch with so many actual legitimate non-AI PR people over the years, and I got in with a couple of the big, at the time, big 6 publishers, and I was doing reviews. I was always doing reviews on Amazon and Goodreads and BookBub and stuff, and so every now and then they would contact me. Well, now that I'm doing unboxing videos and I'm doing other stuff, I'll see something that's coming out, and within a day or two, somebody will say, "Oh, you want to advance to this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." A lot of times it's like, "Listen, I know you don't like romance." I'm like, "No, don't send me a romance book. But if it's thrillers, if it's horror, whatever." And then with meeting Jordan Harper at BoucherCon, he gave me the contact for his PR person for the publisher that he works with for this book, which should be coming out next month. And she sent me a copy of that. I did an unboxing. I did a review video, and then she put me on the list. So I got about 7 or 8 publishers right now that are sending me books. And it's like random stuff too. I just got like the Andrew McCarthy, the from the Brat Pack. I got his new nonfiction book that came in. So it's just random stuff coming in, which is pretty cool. As I said, I don't do a lot of reading while I'm writing because the style tends to bleed into my work and I have to wait a bit before rewriting. It was a good question. I did tell. I only have 3 ARC readers so far for my May release. Mike Lee says, I'm about to start What Moves the Dead. I tried Nettle and Bone. It just wasn't for me. So the What Moves the Dead, what do you call it, Soldier, that series I really like. What is it, 3 books? I've read the T. Kingfisher books. Those I really like. They are very old world gothic horror books. And they're really short. You can blow through those. Those I like. I've never read anything else by her, though. Runaway Heathen says, my husband banned me from buying physical books and bought me an e-reader. I still don't make a chunk in my TBR, but I'm saving space at least. Lorraine read What Moves the Dead. Mike Lee says, hey, Lorraine, you might try Hidden Gems for ARCs. It is a paid service, but I've used it for a few services, and the guy who runs it is very flexible. Lorraine said it had hiccups for me and that it felt like too many genres mashed together. Yeah, I can see that. Mike Lee says, I'm on my phone typing in. Good grief. Lorraine says, too campy in parts for my taste when that wasn't what I thought I was getting. Chad says, I've never been sent ARCs unless they were asking me for a blurb, except one time Lansdale. Here we go. Let's talk about Joe Lansdale. Lansdale had a new one coming out, Moon Lake, and that publisher reached out and sent me a hardcover arc, but that's it. Mike Lee says, I'll keep that in mind before I start. Thanks. Lorraine says, I tried her remake of Fall of the House of Usher, but it was a no for me. Keith puts her to shame. Lorraine says, thanks, Mike. I'll check it out. Everybody helping each other here. I like this book because they're just short. Basically just blow through them. But I've never read anything else. And none of the other books seem to appeal to me. Keith says, Woot. And he's number one. He's top of the list here. Top of the world, Ma. Yeah, I gotta finish this chapter. Keith is going to get a cookie. I already ate all 3 cookies. I'm thankful for this news release that someone is bankrolling my ability to advertise. Social media is like trying to play a video game just to get heard, and I'd rather be writing. Yeah. We all got to do what we got to do. Lorraine says, yeah, social media only works if you have thousands of viewers like Armand. Yeah, and it isn't selling many books right now. I never checked, but did you do a video on building a following? No. Let me write it down, though. I got to slow down with my writing because I can't understand what I'm writing. When we hear this, I've seen a few agents want follower counts, and I don't use them a lot. So social media, so I'm worried that it will be a barrier for me. No, not all agents though. The good agents don't really care about that because they understand. I've talked to a bunch of publishers and actual agents at Nink over the last 3 years at that conference, and they're all like, "Yeah, that's old school. We're not really worried about that. We just want a good book because then we're going to promote it. We want you to have a following on social media, but there's no like you have to have 10,000 followers or any. None of them really do that." Mike Lee says, my ads got 4 responses. One reminder that Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior, one criticizing the cover, one saying WTF is this, and one saying the cover was great. So, yeah, definitely varies. Lorraine says, the story behind the explosive growth in 4 months. I don't want to tell all my secrets. Lorraine said, all right, I think it might be best to leave it off. I said good day, sir. Nick's in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Nick's in the house. Now we're going to have a good day. For what it's worth, I think those agents are in the minority. I've only seen 1 or 2 of those, at least on Query Tracker for my genre. Yeah, that's very old school with the, not all agents, but with the agents that I've ever talked to. Lorraine says, I doubt they'll press it. When I was querying, that didn't hinder me. Yeah. I didn't have a YouTube channel at the time, or 99% of it. Thanks, Nick, for prodding Armand to say that long. Nick is always prodding me. Never thought I'd see the day where Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior was typed in chat, unless I was the one who typed it. Nick says, I'm reading that Final Assault book you gave me. Well, I forgot I gave that to you. That guy is just, he can do no wrong. He loves himself. Why are the cops bother me? Finding my weed and my drugs all the time. What are they do? Why are they doing that? I don't know. Because you have drugs and weed on you, and you're trying to be a tough guy to them. Chad says that bad, Nick. An expert at everything at first try. Yeah, oh yeah, he is the best of the best at everything. He is the greatest drummer in the world. All the ladies love him is right. He can do no wrong, and if he gets in trouble for something, it's the other person's fault. It's jealousy from everyone else. Oh, well, look who decides to do a Nick Zinn and pop in late. All right, so true, Chad, in this day in time, maybe any time. Nick says, and a chapter on how ham radio works. So yeah, I forgot. That was probably my favorite chapter. Hurry up and finish it, Nick, because I'm sure your imaginary girlfriend will also want to read it. But don't let her read it because she'll leave you for him. I'm going to just boom, 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 a couple lines, done. This is when it comes to writing books, I tend to get myself in trouble. 130 fully fleshed out concepts and 20 planned books, but I only write one at a time. Where I said, just received my copy of Permafrost yesterday, Armin. My family gave 2 thumbs up to your cover. Well, nice. Once you read the book, the cover will make sense. Chad says, sounds like the protag in the only S.A. Cosby book I've read, his first book, absolute panty dropper who wins every fight. The machismo in that guy was ridiculous. I haven't read Cosby again since. I wasn't a huge fan of his latest book. His latest book was the guy was the toughest guy, blah blah blah. And I'm like, Lorraine says, Matthew, your long list makes my long list look like a memo note. Frank says, Armand doesn't get enough credit for his art direction. Lorraine, well, I have to send you the song about the type of ADHD I have. Charlie says, I like the cover a lot. Appreciate everybody giving kudos. Now I just need people to buy the damn thing. Chad says, I'll definitely give Cosby another shot, though. I've got a few more of his books. Lorraine says, I'll be looking for it. Yeah, again, the new S.A. Cosby book, I didn't even finish. It just got to be the just too, I don't know. I just didn't like it. I've loved his other stuff, though. Love his short stories. He's one of those guys where I like his shorts and I like Gabino when they write crime short stories. It's really good. When I was at Bouchercon and they did the Noir at the Bar, Sean read one of his newest short stories, and it just was good. It's just good. Nick says Armand doesn't get enough credit for his shark shirt collection. I do have a book. This is my Jawas shirt. To the Jawas. Chad loves this shirt. Chad wants this shirt. If Chad was coming to MondoCon, I'd give him the shirt. Chad says, but I think he could stand to learn some lessons from Happen Leonard, men with faults who you still love to love despite them. Yeah, but you're putting Lansdale on such a high pedestal. Nobody's gonna be able to reach that pedestal. So he has a lot of flawed characters. You just happen to read a character that has apparently no flaws. And in his new book, there's a character that is the super fly cool dude from Atlanta, you know. Again, the guy hasn't even really been through it for long, you know. He hasn't been writing for that long. And he's just a great guy. He's just a great guy to hang out with. Don't get me wrong, I don't think Lansdale's perfect. His stuff can get samey, and at times I roll my eyes at the humor. But overall, I think he's underrated. Lots of people still aren't reading him. I agree with that. When Lansdale is on, he hits. He is 100%. But when he's like you said, when it's the same stuff over, I'm like, I don't. Yeah, this story isn't working for me, or oh, this is another excuse for you to use the N word. Not interested. Frank says, I'd rather deal with Lansdale on a pedestal than in an elevator. You love that. That's gotta be one of your favorite stories ever because he wasn't ripping you apart. The best is you got to be there for that. I'd give anything to be there. It's so funny. The fact that it happened to Chuck makes it even funnier. Hmm. Tomorrow for lunch, I'm having empanadas. Lumpia for dinner tonight. Empanadas tomorrow. It's all going to be good. Oh, they want to feature my book in the BBC Asian network. BBC and Asian. I mean, my stuff practically lives there. Runaway Heathen says, your last stream made me want pierogies. They are delicious. When it comes to critique, there's a difference between basic issues that's easy to address and someone berating you thinking you should just quit writing altogether. Those people have fragile egos. Yeah, usually if you have somebody who's attacking you like that, is because they're afraid someone's going to attack them for their stuff. So they're trying to get ahead of it. Pierogies. Did I miss Armin eat something other than that pack of cookies? I had pierogies the other day, but I do pierogies in the air fryer, and then I dip them in salsa because salsa is not a condiment; it's salsa. I said to my wife, "Oh, we're out of salsa." She's like, "What did you use salsa for?" I'm like, "My pierogies," and she just shakes her head. Like, it's good. I said, "Also, you got those scoops chips, so I use those." But she got me. Don't worry, I have another jar of salsa in the house now. Or no, he said he mentioned them when we were talking about peanut butter. Frank says Asian BBC. I've seen that movie. You made me cough. I'm laughing so hard. Chad says poor Chuck, and the fact that Lansdale ends up blurbing a self-published book they use no editor, just pour salt in the elevator wound. Yep. Remember he said I dipped them in sour cream. I don't like sour cream. Lorraine says I was too fixated on the peanut butter. Yeah, you were just super focused on the peanut butter conversation. Troy says, so what happened with Lansdale in an elevator? Frank says salsa on pierogi is a boss move, right? I'll give you the quick version of the story so Frank doesn't have to type it all out. Frank Edler and Chuck Buda are in an elevator at a convention going down, and Joe Lansdale is on the elevator. And Chuck is all fanboying. He's like, oh, I love your stuff. I'm a big fan. And Lansdale basically, oh, are you a writer? Yeah. Oh, who's your publisher? Oh, I self-publish. And Lansdale basically says, don't do that. Get a publisher. And then it was awkward for the next several floors down. And then Chuck felt like somebody had basically kicked him in the nuts. Wow, why am I not seeing all these comments? I'm not on Twitch. No, I'm just right here. I don't know. For some reason, all the chat stuff seems like it's coming up. And that's why I read them. So everybody knows that they're there. There's nothing wrong with self-publishing. Yeah, but he's old. Lansdale's old school. You know, he's one of those guys that there was no self-publishing was a dirty word back in the early years when he was getting his advances and contracts and everything else. So, but he basically just shut Chuck down. And then Chuck's been talking about it. I mean, that was several years ago. Chuck still talks about it like he got kicked in the nuts a week ago. My favorite Chuck story is the one with Padavona and the urinal. No, that was Frank. Frank says, I'm even on all comments. I don't know. Chess says, Matt, let's face it, self-published stuff has a stigma for a reason. Most of it sucks. Very true. Lorraine says, wait, how long has Frank been in the chat? I must have blinked too long. Yeah, hasn't been in that long. Right after Nick came in. He self-published has a bad rap because of the early years and the low bar for entry, but it's getting much better. Frank says, yeah, give me credit for the urinal. Frank went and uses a very high urinal in a diner in New Jersey. And I think that was the first time Dan Padavona had done a book signing with us, and his wife is there. And Frank walks up behind him. We're at the table. Everybody's at the tables ordering food, and Frank basically was like, oh, the urinal's so big, I had to put my... And he's very graphic on where he had to put his junk on the urinal. And Dan frowned, and I thought his wife was going to duck under the table. And that's just, you know what that is? That's just hanging out with Frank Edler. Matthew says, Chad, I understand that I tend to self-publish because I write niche things that no agent is willing to touch. Mike Lee says, self-pub got a bad reputation because it was used as a shortcut around doing work correctly and pumping out poor quality work. That still happens thanks to AI, but self-pub without AI has been solid. Nick says, first and last signing with y'all. No, I think Dan did 2 or maybe 3 other signings with us after that, which is weird. Runaway Heathen says, I'm going to try every avenue to traditionally publish it first, but if it fails, I'm self-publishing. Though if it fails too hard, then it might be a sign. Yeah, totally classless, Frank. Frank said, I don't have much of a moral barometer. He also really, really, really angered J.C. Walsh's wife at a book signing. He was talking about, what was that movie? Dead Girl? Was that the name of it? She's a zombie and they chain her up and do things with her. And he's talking about that. And she got so pissed at him. I mean, she was so upset that he was talking about as if he wasn't talking about a movie. As if he was like, yeah, this is what I did over the weekend. Yeah, we found a zombie girl and we chained her up and had sex with her. Like, that's Dead Girl. Yeah. She was very bad. But then she had you at her house after that, so it was all, it all worked out. Like Lee says, Runaway Heathen, I think that's the best approach. As my first publisher back in the day, I wound up buying the rights back to, and other authors slammed the company. It was Publish America. Oh, you got rooked on that one. They're still around. They have another name, like 6 names past that now, but they're still ripping you off. In fact, I saw there's a commercial they play at night, and it's the same commercial they've always run, but they just changed the name from Publish America to whatever they are now. Chess says, despite loving horror, Padavona is pretty conservative. I can just see him blushing, squeezing his wife's hand under the table. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we did a few signings with Dan, and then he was just like, yeah, I'm making money now. I don't need to do these signings. And I don't blame him. Frank says she legit thought I was publicly condoning. Yeah, she did. She thought, again, she didn't know you were talking about a movie. She thought you were literally talking about doing that. Renaud, he says, I'm writing a post-apocalypse dark fantasy. I wrote it because I couldn't find many books like it. I am hopeful, though. That's what you do, right? You write the book that you want to read. Lorraine says, sounds great. I like that combo. Matthew says, I read books that somehow get considered to be for kids when actually it's far from suitable for kids. Nick Zinn and the Mr. Frank went on about how great Dio is to him. I never forget we did a signing in Belford, and I told all of my buddies, I'm like, yeah, Dan Padavone's gonna be like, I don't know who this is. It's Ronnie James Dio's son. And then they all, like six of them, they all wore Dio shirts. Or no, he says it's like all the romance fantasy being marketed to young adults when they should be solidly in adult. Matthew said they are similar to the Redwall series, but for older adults, right? Chad said, "Oh no, did you, Frank?" I remember when we did Angry Eric's the first time with Dan. That might have even been the same one with the urinal, and I had told Eric, who's not always all that angry, that about who he was, and he was, oh, you know the band Dio. He's like, yeah, I was like, it's his son, but he doesn't like to talk about it. And then he put it on the flyer. Come meet Ronnie James Dio's writer's son, and Dan was not happy about that. I mean, I was like, listen, I'm really sorry. I told him that in confidence, having a conversation. I told him that that's not how you promote yourself. Frank says, Dan and I bonded over Debbie Gibson, believe it or not. I believe it. That says the thing that pushes it to be for kids has to do with animal characters. My first book was Game of Thrones meets TLK, and it's like Lorraine said. I'm not seeing some of these messages. What did I do? I don't know what you did. I'm reading them all for you. So Lorraine says two completely different conversations going on at the same time. Classic. Yeah. Runaway Heathen says, I mean, Animal Farm has animal characters. It's definitely not for children. Definitely. Spooky Dad in the house. He likes the shirt. I think he's talking to me. Lorraine says, slow down. Let Frank catch up. Yeah, you guys are having way too many conversations. Frank, don't know what's going on. Chess says, I edited several of Dan's books, and when we first met, I played it cool about Dio, but I did send him a picture of his dad and I together to address the elephant in the room. Yeah. I met him through, what was his name? Zach Bohannon? Is that who was? I had him on my podcast, and he's like, hey, Dan Padavone. I'm like, I know the name, but I don't, are you friends with him? He's like, yeah. He's like, I'll hook you up to get an interview with him. I'm like, perfect. He's like, he's Ronnie James Dio's kid. I said, I had no idea. I said, does he like to talk about it? He says, kind of. So I made sure I asked Dan before we started. What is this, plane going to land in my house? That's way too close. Because it was like how Watership Down is not for children, yet I saw it as a wheeler. So did I. I saw it when I was a kid. I was like, holy crap. they're ripping each other's throats out. This is the greatest kids movie ever. It was also my favorite book I read when I was like 12. Yep, Zach Bohannon. Mike Lee says, I'm still stuck on Dio's son. It's funny because he was adopted, but he looks like Ronnie James Dio, and he's also a short. Frank says, I'm basically only seeing what Chad and Lorraine are typing, and none of these other guys, and none of it means anything. Lorraine says they still have to read and watch Watership Down. I think they did a remake of, right? Didn't they do a, not too long ago, they did a movie or a series or something? I never saw it. I saw the original, like back in the day, and of course I read the book a couple times. Frank says, okay, I left and came back. Looks better. Nick says, Old Yeller is a kid's movie, and that will make you cry. I saw Plague Dogs because my dad was a Bakshi fan, and it haunts me. Frank says, I did not do the douchey fanboy thing with Dan, mostly because I'm not really into Dio. They're both short with a space between their teeth and receding hair. Yeah. Mike Lee says that's wild. Keith says I never saw a remake. Yeah, I think they did it. I don't know who they did it. I'm gonna look it up right now. All right, the novel was adapted into a 2D animated feature film in 1978 and a 2D animated children's television series from 1999 to 2001. In 2018, the novel was adapted again, this time into a 3D animated series, which both aired in the UK and was made available on Netflix. Adams completed a sequel almost 25 years later in 1996, Tales from Watership Down, constructed as a collection of 19 short stories about the rabbits of the Watership Down War. And I had no idea there was a sequel. Apparently, he told his daughters these stories growing up, and he hated his kids. So there you go. So there are other there was an animated series, and then there was a 2018 animated series. There's also a role-playing game, Bunnies and Burrows, published in 1976 by Fantasy Games Unlimited. They published the second edition of the game in 1982, and the game was modified and republished by Steve Jackson Games as an official GURP supplement in 1992. I had no idea. Crazy. It's on Netflix or was. The remake that's in Sam Smith's music video, right? I don't know what even that means. Chad, for me in the 80s, Ozzy and Dio were tied for my biggest musical idols. I was an absolute fanatic, so I really had to play it cool with Dan. Right, says, I feel like I'm sitting at a party where you catch bits and pieces of different conversations while you chime with the person in front of you at the time. Yeah, that's the vibe. Man, I love that I keep hearing about GURPS recently. Oh, man, I love GURPS back in the day. You could basically make it into anything. So many great games when I was a kid. Obviously, I played Dungeons and Dragons. I'm a nerd. But I also played a couple of GURPS. Star Frontiers was awesome. Champions. You create your own superheroes. Man, I love playing that. Is GURPS still around? Yeah, because Mike Lee was just talking about it. Or maybe not. It says publication 2004 was the fourth edition. Okay, nerd boys and nerd girls didn't do the same things, evidently. Apparently not. You did not play Dungeons and Dragons growing up? Runaway Heathen says, I was more of a Warhammer fan, but it got too expensive. And for clarification, she's also a woman, by the way. She's a lady. I never really got into Warhammer, but I'm old. I think that was already past. Nick says, ham radio wouldn't have these issues for Mr. Frank, and I have the same book for him. Chess says, Lorraine, GURPS was a tabletop role-playing game like Dungeons & Dragons from like 50 years ago. Charlie says, Warhammer got very expensive. Matt says, I feel out of time in this aspect, but I could say I grew up with Atari 2600 and ColecoVision just before playing the NES. Mike Lee says more so digitally, yes, but yes, Interlock and GURPS live on in other formats and tabletops. No actual new books or anything though. I used to play Boot Hill. I used to play what was the Gamma World. I used to play all of those games. I'm just amazing the how much money I spend on all that crap. Well, Fiend Folio was out. I gotta go buy the Fiend Folio. Renault Heaton says, I 3D print my minis now, just can't play tournaments because they aren't official. Yeah, I've heard that about Warhammer. I used to play the Warhammer Massacre when it came out. I still have both Boot Hill and Gamma World, but I've never actually played either of them. Warhammer, what do you mean Warcraft, or did I miss something? Matthew says, getting late in the afternoon and I'm now fully awake. I had to stop by and have a little fun with everyone, but it's a good time to get to writing. Good luck with the writing, Matthew. No, Warhammer had an MMO called Age of Reckoning. It wasn't around long. I never got into the Warhammer stuff. Charlie says, I switched from Warhammer to Battletech. The minis and books are a lot cheaper and still fun. Mike Lee says, Warhammer is stupidly expensive. I've never played it because when I went to get my starter stuff, it immediately outpriced me. I could do it now as an adult, but I don't want to dump that much money. Rohan says, oh, it's the fantasy one. I was in the sci-fi Warhammer 40K. Mike Lee says, Battletech mentioned. For all you 50-plus ladies out there watching this chat, I'm sorry that I cannot translate. Yeah, your 50s and mine and Chad 50s are obviously very different 50 years. Charlie says Battletech is awesome. You and Mike Lee have something to talk about. Chad says, it's like Lorraine just woke up in the men's locker room and she can't find her way out and no one has given her directions. Lorraine says, happy writing, Matthew. Mike Lee says, agreed. Glad it got a bit of resurgence. Looked like it was dead for a minute. And they posted it again. Lorraine says, yep, I'm slow on the keys. Runaway Heathen says, I just like big space soldiers with a zealous devotion. Mike Lee says, I don't know why that posted twice, because you posted it twice. Just admit you did it. Loren says, leave the fellas alone long enough. It's all games and bands. You're right, Chad. That's the visual. Pretty much. I guess I am doing the 2 hours today, which I said I was not going to do. I'm doing it. I got a little frog in my throat. Get some water. Frank says, I played Space Invaders. I've heard of that. I was always awful at that. Chaz says, the rain kind of reminds me of my ex-brother-in-law who was homeschooled every year of his life and has all these questions about pop culture because all he knows is Veggie Tales. Ryan says, yes, Space Invaders. Now I understand what's being said. I'm partial to Centipede myself. Oh, Chad, you didn't say that. And Doom and Final Doom are my PlayStation games. Pitfall was fun. Pitfall is one of those games where you just figure out the timing on every single level. And then after a while, you just never die. No mention of Axis and Allies. I never played. I never played that. Me and my friends, we had like every other gaming system. We had the James Bond one. We played that once or twice. Boot Hill was fun. Gamma World was fun, except there was a lot of, you have to pause for 2 rounds or whatever, and then you get shot. Ella just means your head is in a better place than most of ours in the rain. It's crowded up here. Yeah, very crowded. Dig Dug sounds like a guy who sells weed. Frank played Axis and Allies. Chess is because there are 200,000 other games that put Axis and Allies to shame. Charlie says, it is an exercise now as a board game. Brent says, I lived a rather southern gothic life in the woods of rural Georgia for a good bit of it. As an introvert, do the math. Frank says, that's like a weekend of Mountain Dew and Doritos and World War II. Yep. I'm trying to think what other games we used to play. I was wearing my Dark Drow Dungeons and Dragons shirt the other day. My wife was like, "What is that shirt?" My guy shirt finally fits me again. Pathfinder. We played Pathfinder. Remember that one? So many good games. Frank says, I have a game similar to Axis and Allies called Invasion America, I believe. It was a futuristic invasion of the U.S. Never could convince anyone to play it, though. So I just looked at it a lot. Charlie says, GoldenEye and Turok Dinosaur Hunter on N64. Nick says, Southern Gothic, so more Vampire the Masquerade. GoldenEye, Star Fox, Perfect Dark. I was never a huge video game fan, though. I played, but not like many of them. Lorenz says there aren't any vampires in Southern Gothic as far as I know. Chad says, so when the apocalypse starts, Lorraine will have all the knowledge that counts. She can show us how to can veggies, dress a deer, set a trap, and use solar power to run your generator. But the rest of us will all die talking about Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. Orion says almost all of that. That's like my wife. My wife's like, yeah, I can shoot a gun. I can basically prep and do all this stuff. I'm like, you know what, honey? I hope you do all this stuff because I can't do any of it. None of that is appealing to me. The guy that she's trying to flirt with in my book, behind the counter to get somebody's room number. He says, I wish I could, but there are rules. And she says, rules are made to be broken, Chad. His name is Chad. Ryan says, I'm a good shot and I can make a shelter. Mike Lee says, well, I didn't have friends, so board games weren't an option. Keith says, wouldn't True Blood be Southern Gothic with vampires, the Suki Stackhouse novels? Yeah. To me, yeah. I mean, that's how they promoted them. Chad says, I played Pathfinder Armand. It was an easy choice after the abomination of 4th edition D&D came out. Yeah, 4th edition was just ridiculous. Yeah, we never played Pathfinder, though. Runaway Heathens is trying to run a campaign in the ruins of a skyscraper using casings for minis. Frank says, I've been to Build-A-Bear. I know how to dress a deer. Mike Lee says, 5.5E is official now. Lorraine says, that's a commercial nonsense hybrid. Nick says, sure, she can shoot a gun, but what does Shelley roll for dexterity? Mike Lee says, damn, shots fired. Lorraine says, William Faulkner, Edgar Allan Poe, Anne Rice is Southern Gothic. Charlie says. One time I had Larry Haydorn here. Some of you might remember Larry Haydorn. I know Frank does. He was here over a weekend, and we played Dungeons and Dragons. It was the first time I'd played in like 20 years. And he had this whole big, huge setup and maps, and he had lighting and all this other stuff. And my wife and his wife went out shopping. And when they came back, we had like 3 other people that were also here playing. And Larry was dungeon master. And my wife is sitting here, and Larry says in the game, so a light shoots out from her holy object. And my wife lost it. She's like, that's what you call that thing in the game a holy object? I'm like, no, it's a literal. And then there was another thing where Larry said very excitedly, and she laughed, and she's like, you guys are nerds. I'm like, yeah, we are. Go in the other room. Go in the other room. My barbarian is getting really mad at you. All right, says, is she, Charlie? Lorraine says, it's okay to put a heavy Gothic spin on traditional Southern Gothic. Renee Heathen says, I picture Southern Gothic separately from Louisiana vampire stories, but I am not the brightest tool in the box. Yeah, I'm not sure. It also depends on when we're talking about stuff, because it also depends on marketing and what's the hot thing at that point. I guess just because something's set in the South doesn't automatically make it Southern Gothic. But I can see definitely, I can definitely see Charlie's point on that one. Chad says the term Southern Gothic needs to be split to differentiate one genre from the other. That's how we add other words: Southern Gothic thriller, Southern Gothic drama, Southern Gothic noir, whatever. Nick says, was Flannery O'Connor Southern Gothic? Flannery O'Connor is the definition of Southern Gothic. Lorraine says, some say Southern Gothic is just a vibe, but I think it's more than that. I agree with that. Chad says, one means Louisiana vampires and ghosts and classic hauntings, while the other means your neighbor in the woods deal meth and your other neighbor is fixing to kill him. Yeah. And it's kind of like saying, oh, I write romance, and then there's 47 subgenres. I think Southern Gothic, there's so many subgenres. There's time. Is it set today? Is it set in the 1950s? Is it set 200 years? All of those things. Lorraine says, yes, Charlie, my attempt at playfulness fell flat. Charlie says, Flannery O'Connor was Southern Goth. Yes. So not the Florida goth girl I dated back in high school. Her, yes, probably yes. She probably fits right in with that. Another good Southern Gothic horror writer, it was Michael McDowell. And another great Southern Gothic singer, Michael McDonald. But one Gothic has zero to do with the other Gothic. Romance has the common denominator of love despite the subgenre. Yeah, but we're not talking about Gothic. We're talking about Southern Gothic because it's set in Texas, Louisiana, Georgia, Florida. It's set in the South. Nick says, is Popeye's Chicken Southern Gothic? Very much so. Actually, Popeye's Chicken is Southern Gothic noir. If it isn't, I don't want to know. Lorraine says, moral decay. Frank says, I never had it in me to date a goth. I don't think I'd ever dated a goth either. I really wasn't into the goth of my day. I really wasn't into the Smiths and the Cure and orchestral maneuvers in the dark. Lorraine says, noir chicken, tasty. That is very tasty. He says, I feel like Mr. Frank saying that. You should, but you didn't type it wrong. So Nick says, I'll be silent on the goth girl dating thing. You know why? Because Nick was the goth girl that people were dating. I went over 2 hours. Look at me. I was like, if I could do an hour, I'll be happy. Mike Lee says, honestly, my real definition, a southern version of Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno, setting and pacing define it for me more so than the actual plot, with theme usually being darker. I'm going to say this, besides the title of her book, is that really Mexican Gothic? I don't know. Chess says, but if you say Flannery was Southern Gothic, then someone who loves Interview with a Vampire will just probably be like, oh, so she writes like Anne Rice. Right. My mom will be proud. Frank says, if I dated a goth chick, our whole relationship would be me asking her why she's so glum. Glum. I like that word. You got to have the right comps, right? You can't say, hey, I wrote this book. It's Southern Gothic like, and your comps are, it's Southern Gothic like Flannery O'Connor. I wrote this Southern Goth and it's Ron Rash. Ray said I had a very, very difficult time finding comps for my books. That's good or bad. Gotta have some. I'm like, you know what? I have several. Once I finish this book, my non-existent goth ex-girlfriend, like talking to a shoe, where the Crawdads Sing has the closest vibe, right? And that's a great book, and it's definitely Southern Gothic. But then you wouldn't say, "Oh, so that's so." If I like that, I would like Interview with the Vampire, right? So I get it. It's more of the marketing. What's the big thing and what we have to do? Oh, S.A. Cosby is writing. We're calling this Southern Gothic Noir. Let's just throw everything into that now. Nick has the patience and understanding to deal with the goths. I agree with that. Chad says, I just wish there was a simpler term I could use instead of, I write Southern Gothic, rural noir, dirty realism, slice of life. Yeah. I get why people want to throw vampires in. I like them too. Ray Heathen said, the only understanding of the goths I have is when they are sacking Rome. Those goths were brutal. Don't even get me started about the Vandals. I hate doing comps. You're supposed to have more recent releases as comps, but depending in genre, you might not have that. Good luck finding cyberpunk comps that aren't Snow Crash. Nick says the C was Southern Gothic. Yeah. All right. Thanks everybody for hanging out with me today. We had a lot of conversation. I got some writing in. I almost got 2 pages in. I will be back tomorrow, I believe. Yeah, I have therapy at 3, so I should be back at noon. And then Friday is Positive Friday again. Feels like we just had that a few days ago. Runaway Heathen, have a great day. Thanks for streaming. Thanks for being on. I appreciate it. Excuse me. I appreciate you hanging out with us today. Myron, everyone. I'll see everybody hopefully tomorrow. Definitely on Friday. Tomorrow and Friday. We're going to do this again. We are getting closer to my 4,000 hours. So this is exciting. We got to come up with something big when we hit 4,000 hours. See you later, Keith. Thanks for hanging out.